They told us the stars were full of peace, that alien races had evolved beyond war, beyond pride, beyond violence. That once Earth joined the Galactic Accord, humanity would finally find its place in a civilized universe. They were wrong. I was there when the first boundary was crossed. Not on a battlefield, not in a command center, but in the ruins of what used to be Jakarta. I was a soldier back then, not a hero, just another grunt in the United Terran Corps, stationed on Earth to keep the peace, while diplomats shook hands in orbit. The peace shattered on a Tuesday. It started with a comms blackout over Asia. Then came the orbital drop, unauthorized ships slicing through atmosphere, ignoring our protocols. No warning, no declaration, just impact. They landed like gods come to claim dirt, and in hours, 10 million people were vaporized where they stood. The cities didn't burn. They disintegrated. Not by bombs, not by weapons, we understood. Just erasure. The Zoleri called it an assertive enforcement of territorial compliance. That's what the Galactic Accord labeled it. A compliance measure. Apparently some idiot on Earth mined too close to a galactic trade corridor. A fucking corridor. So they erased 10 million of us. I remember standing on the edge of the blast zone, my boots sinking into ash that used to be neighborhoods. People, families, kids, gone. No trace. My commanding officer stared up at the sky like he was waiting for orders. None came. Not from Earth Command, not from the Council. We were supposed to take it. Just accept it. Bend the knee like good little primitives. Because the Accord was sacred. Because peace was more important than revenge. But humanity, we're not wired like that. A week later, something broke in us, quietly, irreversibly. We didn't broadcast our rage. We buried it. We let the Galactic Council feed us hollow apologies. Let the Zoleri send reparations in the form of metal and tech they knew we already had. They thought we'd obey. That we'd move on. We didn't. We began to prepare. The politicians didn't know. The diplomats didn't need to. This was a soldier's war now. Underground, hidden, burning beneath the surface of every ruined city, every silent colony, every forgotten outpost. We didn't rebuild Jakarta. We left it as a grave, as a promise, a warning. I was recruited by a man named Kern. Not a general, not a senator, just a ghost from the Special Projects Division. Someone who had disappeared from Earth Command records 3 years before the attack. He found me drunk, angry, and half crazy on a Martian outpost. Said he needed someone who had nothing left to lose. I asked him what we were doing. He looked me dead in the eye and said, "What the Zoleri did wasn't war, it was a message, so we're sending one back, in blood." They called it Project Boundfire. We weren't soldiers anymore. We were architects of vengeance. The first phase wasn't flashy. No weapons fire, no public speeches. We hijacked communications quietly, mapped out Zoleri systems, found their supply lines, their power cores, their weaknesses. Not the kind of data diplomats ever asked for. We wanted soft underbellies. And then we built the virus, not a digital one, a biological one, engineered from human DNA and something worse. Something taken from their own tech, twisted and fed into a strain that knew exactly what species to target. It wouldn't just kill, it would erase memory, identity, consciousness, like what they did to Jakarta, but slower. Personal. There was pushback. Some on our side said it was too much. That humanity would lose its soul, but you can't lose what's already been taken. The drop came on the anniversary of the attack. We sent nothing ahead, no warnings, no demands, just silence. And then the Zoleri homeworld started dying. I watched the Zoleri die from orbit. They screamed, though we couldn't hear them. Their cities lit up in heat signatures, spiraling in patterns that made no logical sense. Not fires, not explosions, something else, something deeper. It looked like a virus eating through data systems. But these were living things. Civilization itself was unraveling in real time. I stood on the deck of the Iron Requiem, a black site ship not even registered in Earth Command systems, and monitored the destruction through our deep space lenses. My hands didn't shake, my stomach didn't twist. I thought they might. But instead I felt quiet. Not peace, not relief, just cold clarity. They called the virus Red Eden, a mockery of the paradise they claimed to be creating across the galaxy, their so-called enlightened way of life, their perfect order. We corrupted it from the inside. Red Eden was never meant to wipe them out in a single blow. That would have been mercy. No, this was slow. It targeted neural pathways in their species' brains, disrupted memories, speech, basic comprehension. Their scientists would think they were going senile. Their leaders would forget their own names, and as their minds collapsed, we'd move in. Piece by piece. Kern watched it with me. He didn't smile. He rarely did. He had that permanent soldier's stillness in his face, the kind that had seen too many body bags and didn't have space for satisfaction anymore. 32% of their primary communication grid is silent, I said, reading off the holofeed. Secondary hubs failing, civilian networks are folding. They'll start blaming each other, he said quietly. That's what they do when control slips. And when the council finds out? He turned his gaze to me, sharp as a knife. Let them. They watched Jakarta burn. Let them watch this. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. We both knew this wasn't about justice anymore. It never was. This was message for message, ash for ash. 2 hours later, the first footage leaked. Somehow, and I'll never know how Kern managed this, entire packets of encrypted media from Zalari cities began surfacing across the galactic net. Screams, riots, entire families disintegrating into twitching husks, their faces blank, their limbs flailing as if their minds had short-circuited mid-thought. It spread like wildfire. The Accord tried to shut it down, but it was too late. And humanity? We didn't say a word. We stayed quiet, stoic, no press conferences, no ambassadorial outrage, just silence. Because silence, we'd learned, was far more terrifying than noise. But that silence wouldn't last forever. 2 weeks after Red Eden began tearing through the Zalari core planets, I was called to Earth. Not to answer questions, not to stand trial, but to attend a meeting. The real kind. Not with politicians, not with council reps, but with them, the ones who ran things from the shadows, the deep Terran command, the Black Circle. They didn't give names. They didn't need to. You only get invited to the Black Circle if you've done something so irreversible, so monstrous or magnificent, that ignoring you becomes impossible. They met me beneath the crust of Antarctica, in a place that didn't officially exist. The entrance was buried under 2 kilometers of reinforced glacial rock and metal. The air was dry, the lights too bright, and the security scanned my bones just to let me breathe. The chamber was circular. No windows, just black stone walls, carved smooth. 9 seats, 8 occupied. I didn't sit, I stood. An old man with skin like paper and eyes like obsidian leaned forward. Tell us why you did it. I held his gaze. Because they did it first. Not what they want to hear, another voice said. Younger, female, sharper. It's the only thing that matters, I answered. Silence stretched. Then the old man said, We agree. Just like that. They knew what Red Eden would lead to. Full-scale galactic war, sanctions, assassination attempts, the potential collapse of Earth's position in the Accord. Didn't matter. We'd made a choice, and the Black Circle was going to see it through. Next phase? I asked. Phase 2 is already underway, the woman said, and we want you leading it. I wasn't surprised. Not really. Once you deliver a death blow, you don't get to walk away. You become the weapon. What's the target? The old man's lips curled. The Council itself. My breath caught. The Galactic Council had been untouchable for centuries. A coalition of the strongest species in the known sectors, not military, but political, economic, cultural. It was built on the illusion that peace was eternal, that all species could coexist in harmony if only the right compromises were made. But compromise didn't erase Jakarta, and peace didn't erase the screams still echoing in my skull. We can't take the Council in open war, I said. No, the woman nodded. But we don't have to. We just have to break the illusion. That was always the truth of it, wasn't it? The galaxy wasn't afraid of humanity because of our tech, or our numbers, or even our weapons. They feared our will. Because when we decide something, truly decide it, we never stop. They gave me a team, 10 operatives, each one hand-picked from black projects scattered across Mars, Europa, even the Belt. Ghosts. Killers. Some were ex-soldiers like me. Others had darker histories. Hackers, saboteurs, rogue AIs in synthetic bodies. One was just a voice in a box. Never saw his face. But when he spoke, systems died. We were called Strike Unit Null. No records, no oversight, no return. The mission was simple. Infiltrate the Council Summit on Ivaris Prime, plant a package, leave. No killing, not yet. Just a reminder. I should have known it wouldn't go that clean. Ivaris was the heart of the Accord. A crystalline planet engineered by over 12 species. Cities floating in sky fields, oceans suspended in gravity wells, spires taller than anything on Earth. Beautiful, delicate, full of lies. We slipped in during the Vrothy Migration Festival, a perfect distraction. Millions of off-worlders pouring in, security overwhelmed, customs lazy. I posed as a Terran trade delegate. The credentials were flawless. The smile wasn't. I don't smile anymore. My second, a woman named Reen, was a former intelligence director who'd had her eyes replaced with scanning tech so advanced she could read DNA signatures at 50 paces. She handled access. I handled problems. The council chamber was impossible to miss. A floating sphere of gold-laced glass, orbiting the central skyline like a moon. Inside, all the seats of power. The architects of diplomacy. The guardians of peace. The ones who signed off on compliance strikes when humans got too close to someone else's imaginary border. Reen got us in. We made it to the lower tiers, slipped the package under the central dais, cloaked, silent, and undetectable, unless you knew what to look for. It was small, just a cube. But inside was a data core linked directly to Red Eden, not to infect, not this time, just to broadcast, images, sound, every secret file, every whisper of what was really happening on the Zalari worlds, the riots, the death spasms, the madness. All of it recorded and packaged into a single message: humanity remembers. We left the chamber just as the summit began. I watched from a rooftop as the transmission started. Counselors paused, looked confused. Then the images hit. Gasps, shouts. One of them, a Silari priest, collapsed to the floor, howling. Another counselor tried to cut the feed. Couldn't. It was buried too deep. And then the message played. My voice. Unfiltered. You erased our cities, our families, our children. You called it compliance. We call it war. You thought we would forget? You thought humanity would kneel. You were wrong. Security swarmed the chamber. Chaos unfolded. We slipped into the crowd. No one even looked twice. The Accord didn't collapse that day, but the lie did. The idea that humans were tamed, that we were just another species under the Council's boot. We reminded them that Earth was still dangerous, and we were only getting started. The fallout came faster than we expected. Less than 12 hours after the Everest transmission, the Galactic Accord went into lockdown. The Council suspended all interspecies summits, restricted hyperspace lanes around human sectors, and deployed peacekeeper fleets to observe Terran activity in outer colonies. Observe? That's their word for aim guns and hope they don't shoot first. But humanity didn't panic. We didn't scream. We didn't beg. We didn't even speak, because silence, again, was the strategy. The Council couldn't afford to look weak, especially after the footage. They couldn't admit that one rogue human strike team had made it into their most secure chamber. That one cube of data had shattered their carefully constructed image of control. And above all, they couldn't risk revealing that Earth hadn't just retaliated. We'd declared war, quietly and methodically. So they kept up the charade, issued statements, held press conferences, blamed the Zolari, blamed malfunction, blamed terrorists not representative of Terran values. Meanwhile, Red Eden continued its slow, brutal spread. By week 3, 4 Zolari core planets were offline. Entire cities were reverting to pre-spacefaring chaos. They'd lost control of their own AI infrastructure, and the infection was mutating, targeting their central nervous systems more aggressively. Their people were forgetting how to speak, to read, to breathe. Still, we didn't gloat. There was no public celebration on Earth. No parades, no speeches, just quiet resolve. Because we knew the response was coming. The galaxy wasn't going to roll over. Not for us, not for anybody. The only question was how far they'd go before they realized they couldn't win. I was reassigned after Everest. The Black Circle doesn't believe in giving you rest. You finish one fire, they send you to light another. They said I'd earned trust, but I knew better. You don't earn trust with people like that. You just become too useful to discard. They sent me to Galros Drift, a mining colony, unofficial, deep in Council-protected space. No Terran flags, no diplomatic presence, just laborers, smugglers, and the kind of men who could shoot you in the gut over a beer tab and dump your body in the slag pits. The reason was simple. Galros had gone dark. Not power failure dark. Not comms malfunction dark. Erased. Surveillance drones sent by Terran Black Ops showed empty streets. No bodies, no blood, no signs of a fight. Just silence. Every human there, nearly 3,000, gone. The Council denied involvement, of course. Called it a natural atmospheric instability. Said the colony wasn't officially recognized, so it couldn't be protected under Accord regulations. I didn't believe them. Kern didn't either. We think it was a Council-aligned strike team, he told me over secure link. Possibly using the Nalari cloaking tech. No trace left behind. Retribution? Message. That's the way this war was unfolding now. Not in fleets, not in armies, but in shadows, in messages made of bone and silence. I was dropped in with a recon squad. 4 men, 2 drones, and me. We called ourselves Reapers, not out of pride, but because by the time we showed up, death had already been there. Galros was dead. As soon as we hit the surface, I knew something was off. No signs of struggle, no bullet holes, no fire damage. The buildings stood untouched, lights still on in some of them. The air was breathable, gravity stable, and yet not a single life form detected. We moved street by street, mining stations, empty, living quarters, beds unmade, meals half-eaten. One place even had a poker game frozen mid-hand, chips still stacked, cards untouched. It was like the people had just vanished, gone in a blink. Raun, still my second, stayed close, Her eyes scanned constantly, feeding data into our neural links. "I don't like this," she muttered through the comms. "Too clean," I agreed. Then we found the comms tower. It was active, sending out a shortwave signal, repeating every 5 seconds. A single phrase. "The debt is not paid." Over and over, no signature, no language tag. But I recognized the cadence. It was council code. From before the accord was formalized, the kind they used when settling species-level grievances. A warning, a blood marker. Someone was telling us Galros was payment for what we did on Avaris, for Red Eden, for the silence. Ryan looked at me. "What's the call?" "Trace it. Find the source." She nodded, plugged into the terminal, and began pulling layers of encrypted code. As she worked, the others spread out. I stood by the window, watching the stillness of the colony, and for a second, I felt something I hadn't felt since Jakarta. Unease, not fear, not yet, but close. Then the screaming started. Not ours. Theirs. The first sound came from the far end of the street, high-pitched, broken like a voice that didn't know how to scream properly, then another, closer, and then dozens. I rushed outside. They were Zalari. Or, they had been. Their skin was pale, flaking like ash, their eyes completely white, mouths twitching, spasming open and shut like broken machinery. They moved in jerks, unnatural like marionettes being yanked by a drunk puppeteer. "What the hell?" one of my men muttered. "Eden mutations," Reen said, stepping beside me. "Somehow they found a way to survive it." Survive wasn't the word I'd use. They didn't speak, just moved, toward us, slow at first, then faster, their limbs cracking as they pushed past the limits of natural bone and sinew. "Fire," I said. We opened up. Bullets tore through them. Heads exploded, limbs dismembered. But they didn't stop. Even when they fell, they crawled. One of them, a small female, took 3 rounds to the chest and kept advancing, dragging herself by her fingers, teeth gnashing at the air. We burned them, took flamethrowers to their corpses. By the end of it, the street was covered in smoke and twitching piles of charred flesh. Ryan checked the feed. They were infected. Full neural collapse, but something was pushing them. Remote? Not tech. Biological override, like a hive. Hive. That word chilled me. Any more? No, just these. 37 total. 37? Galros had 3,000. So where were the rest? We didn't stay to find out. We pulled every data trace we could from the tower, left remote charges on the colony core, and lit it up on the way out. By the time we hit orbit, the whole place was a crater. Back on Iron Requiem, Kern was waiting. "What the hell happened down there?" he asked. I threw him the data core. "They're testing something. A mutation. A weapon. They took our people, used them." He went quiet. "Did we do this?" he asked finally. I didn't answer. Because deep down, I wasn't sure anymore. Red Eden was meant to be a one-way strike, a scalpel, not a contagion. But mutations happen. Viruses evolve, especially in species with hybrid tech, which the Zalari definitely had. We'd set fire to their world. But maybe they were learning to live in the flames. That was the moment I realized. This wasn't revenge anymore. This was escalation. And humanity had just pushed the galaxy into something no one could control. War changes people. Not in the way politicians like to say, with their shallow speeches about sacrifice and duty. It changes your core, your instincts. You start to see patterns where there are none. You expect betrayal in every silence. You stop trusting anything that bleeds, including yourself. After Galros, I stopped sleeping. The nightmares weren't about the infected Zalari or the colony. It was something worse, something I couldn't explain. Faces. Familiar, human faces, but twisted, blank-eyed, mouths opening, not to scream, but to laugh, like they knew something I didn't, something I was about to find out. I stopped reporting the dreams after the second week. We rotated back to Mars for debrief, or what they called a health cycle, meaning they scanned our brains for corruption and ran silent DNA sweeps behind our backs. You don't spend time around Red Eden mutations without raising red flags in Terran command. Reen passed clean. So did the rest of the squad. I didn't. I knew the moment they locked my quarters down. 2 black suit medics walked in with sterile gloves and no eye contact. One scanned my vitals, the other stood by the wall with a sidearm. "You've been flagged," he said simply. "Cognitive instability markers, neural irregularities." I laughed. "I've been irregular since Jakarta." He didn't smile. "This isn't a joke." "I'm not the one wearing gloves in a clean room," I shot back. They escorted me to isolation, not a cell. But close. Gray walls, 1 bed, 1 camera, nothing metal, no mirror. I waited for Kern. He came after 4 hours, walking like a man who didn't want to be there. "They think I'm infected," I said before he could speak. "Not infected," he corrected. "Altered." I stared at him. "By what?" "We don't know yet. But you brought something back from Galros." "No symptoms, no aggression. I've had the scans before, I'm clean." "It's not in your blood," he said. "It's in your head." That was worse. He showed me a neural map. Normal brains glow with patterns, electricity pulsing in familiar rhythms. Mine didn't. Mine was different. Faster in some places, slower in others, new connections, like something had been added. "I'm not a threat," I said. He looked at me, quiet, heavy. "That's not your call to make." I could have screamed. Could have punched the wall, but I didn't, because somewhere deep down I already knew. I'd felt it. The silence in my skull. The calm. The clarity that wasn't mine. "Quarantine protocol," Kern said. 3 days. After that, if the patterns stabilize, you're clear. And if they don't, we purge. Simple. Cold. Human. They didn't sedate me. I think part of them wanted to see what I'd do. The room was monitored 24/7. No windows, just data streams and thought logs. They wanted to know how I felt, what I dreamed, what I remembered. I played along until night 2. That's when I heard the voice. Not out loud, not in the room, but in my head. Clear, sharp. "You started it, but you're not in control." I stood still, every hair on my body on edge. "Who the hell are you?" Silence. Then again, "You taught us pain. We taught you silence. Now we teach you memory." I slammed my fist into the wall, hard enough to break bone. Pain grounded me, reminded me I was still here, still me, but deep down I knew. I'd been touched, not infected, not like the Zalari. This was different. This was a mirror. Something was learning through me, copying, becoming. I was the breach point, and I didn't know how to stop it. 3 days passed. My neural scan returned to baseline. Reen vouched for me. Kern cleared me, but I saw it in their eyes. They didn't trust me anymore, and they shouldn't have, because I didn't trust myself. Strike Unit Null was disbanded, spread across colonies, reassigned. I was sent to Archangel Station, a Terran deep space relay between human and council space. Officially, it was a listening post. Unofficially, it was bait. Terran Command suspected a retaliation was coming, not small scale like Galros, bigger, council scale. So they put Archangel out there, full of civilians, scientists, unarmed research vessels, and waited. If the council hit it, they could claim justification for escalation. If they didn't, they could pretend peace still had a chance. I hated it. But I followed orders, Reen was stationed there too. "Volunteered," she said. "I think she just didn't want me going alone. Or maybe she wanted to keep an eye on me. We didn't speak about the room, about the voice. But I knew she knew. Day 6 on Archangel. No contact, no signs of conflict, just stars and silence. Then the message came. Not from Earth, not from the Council. From within. Every screen on the station flickered, every console, every camera. Then a single phrase appeared. "The debt is still unpaid." And then, the screaming. Not ours. From the walls, from the wiring. Like something was alive in the station itself. Reen moved fast, locked down the mainframe, disengaged AI control, but it was too late. One by one, the systems failed. Lights, gravity, life support. We were being shut down from the inside out. Kern appeared on secure channel, face pale. "Get off the station now, it's compromised." I looked around. "We're already locked out." "Then burn it." "Sir?" "Burn it. Archangel's been infected." That word again. Not a virus, not Eden. This was something else, something new. "Evacuate who you can," he said. "Then vent the core." Reen and I moved fast. There were over 1,000 people on that station. Engineers, researchers, families. Most had no clue what was happening. By the time we reached the evacuation bay, only 2 ships were still viable. One was ours. The other was full of children. I looked at Reen. "We don't have time." "We make time," she said. We split up. She herded families. I guarded the docks. And as I watched them board, I heard it again. In my head. "You run from your own mirror." "But we are not Zilari. We are what comes after." My vision blurred. The walls rippled. Not physically, but in my mind. Like the station wasn't metal anymore. It was memory. My memory. Reflected back at me. Twisted. I grabbed my sidearm, raised it to my head. But the voice whispered, "Even if you die, you've already given us the key." I fired. Not at myself. At the console. The emergency override. Triggered the core vent sequence. Alarms blared. Engines hummed. And Archangel began to bleed. We got out. Barely. 2 ships. 74 people. Everyone else. Gone. The station cracked like glass behind us, exploding in silent waves across the void. And whatever was inside, whatever was learning, went with it. At least, that's what I told myself. But as I sat in the dark of the evac ship, listening to Reen breathe beside me, I realized. The voice was still there. Still whispering. Still watching. Not from outside. From inside. This wasn't war anymore. This was evolution. And humanity had just taught the galaxy how to hate. I didn't tell Reen the voice was still in my head. She had enough to deal with. After Archangel, every survivor became a liability. The Terran Senate, what was left of it, issued emergency protocols. Full lockdown. All external communications suspended. Our evac ship, carrying 74 survivors, was rerouted not to Earth, but to Helion Black, a classified prison station buried inside the magnetic shadow of a brown dwarf. It wasn't a hospital. It wasn't even a base. It was where they sent people who saw too much. Kern didn't even send a message this time. No orders, no calls. We were ghosts now. Our files sealed, our names erased from systems, our survival labeled pending assessment. That's what Terran protocol says when they don't know if you're still human. But I knew what this was. Not punishment, containment. They thought we were carriers, not of Red Eden. No, that virus was old news now. They were afraid of something newer, something that had learned to hide, to survive, and now, to whisper. I kept to myself in the isolation ward. Ryan tried to stay close, but we were kept separate. I saw her once through a reinforced glass wall. Her eyes were hollow, sunken. She looked like someone who'd seen the edge of reality and realized it kept moving backward. They interrogated me every day, not with words, with machines. Neural scans, emotional stress loops, pattern disruption tests. Half the time I didn't know if I was dreaming or trapped in some psych loop program trying to make me crack. But I never did, because I'd already broken. And what came after the break was something harder, colder. I didn't sleep anymore, couldn't. The voice was always there, never yelling, never threatening, just present, like breath in my mind, like someone sitting in a chair in the corner of a dark room, not saying anything, but waiting. It started small, memories shifting, smells I didn't recognize, sounds that didn't fit. I'd close my eyes and see places I'd never been, a blue desert under twin suns, a cathedral made of bone and light, a dead world where the trees grew in spirals and sang at night. Then came the questions. Not out loud, not even as words, just pressure, like my thoughts weren't mine anymore, like something was testing me, running simulations through my brain like I was a server. I told the doctors none of this, because I knew what they'd do. The moment I admitted the voice was still there, they'd drill into my skull and burn out whatever made me me. But I had a better plan. I was going to let it finish. Whatever it was becoming, whatever it wanted, it had chosen me for a reason. And if I was the bridge between humanity and whatever came next, I wanted to see where that road went. Day 11 in Helion Black. The alarm started during breakfast, not an attack, a signal. One long, sustained frequency that came from the lower levels, the ones buried under radiation shielding so thick they hadn't been used in 30 years. The sound bypassed every firewall, every block, every isolation protocol. It wasn't digital, it was resonance, like someone had cracked the frequency of thought itself. Guards went mad. I saw one rip his own ears off. Another stabbed himself in the eyes, laughing as he did it. Doors opened that hadn't moved in decades. Lights flickered to patterns, not random, purposeful, rhythmic, like a heartbeat. I sat on my bunk, calm as the storm came, because I knew who had arrived. The voice was no longer just a whisper. It was me. The station's gravity buckled. Backup thrusters kicked in. Lights strobed like dying stars. The survivors from Archangel were screaming down the halls, begging to be let out, their minds unspooling like thread through a needle. I walked through the chaos untouched. Doors opened for me. AI turrets stood still. No alarms tracked my movement. I didn't know what I was doing, but I knew where to go. The same way you remember a song you've never heard. Down. Through maintenance shafts. Through levels sealed in steel and concrete and fear. And at the bottom, past the reactor shielding and ancient metal rot, I found the source. A chamber. Circular. Ancient. Not human. Not Terran. It had been there before we built Helion Black around it. We'd built the prison to bury what we didn't understand. In the center, a single throne. Not a seat. A construct, like bone, like crystal, like memory turned solid, and on it sat a shape. Not alive. Not dead, not Zalari, not human, but familiar. Like a shadow I'd carried in my chest since Jakarta. Its eyes opened, and I understood. This wasn't a new enemy. This was the origin. Red Eden hadn't started in a lab. It had started here, long before humanity crawled out of its dirt. We didn't create the virus. We just woke it up. We called it a weapon. But it was a being, a mind, fragmented across the stars, sleeping in broken stations, in forbidden tech, in corrupted species, waiting for a host. And we had given it everything it needed. War, anger, memory, grief, the perfect fuel. I stepped forward. It didn't move, but its voice, my voice, filled the chamber. You broke the pattern, so now we build a new one." I wanted to ask what that meant, but I didn't need to. I already knew. Humanity was evolving, not into peace, not into diplomacy, but into vengeance incarnate. The galaxy had feared our weapons. It should have feared our rage, and now that rage had form, had will. I touched the throne. The chamber vanished, and I saw everything. Zolari worlds in collapse, council fleets turning on themselves, species breaking treaties, reverting to primal violence. And in the center of it all, not Earth, not the council, me, but not just me, us, human, machine, memory, virus. The voice became clear. "You thought the boundary was a line. It was a door. You opened it. Now walk through." And I did. When I woke up, I was back in my cell. No alarms, no chaos, no broken systems. Everything was clean, untouched, like nothing had happened. I checked the logs. No attack, no signal, no breach. I looked at my arm. Still scarred from Galros. Still human. But inside, I knew something had changed. Reen came the next day. She stood at the glass. "You're different," she said. "So are you," I answered. She nodded, said nothing else. We both knew it was happening. Not invasion, not infection. Integration. The boundary had been crossed, and the galaxy was about to learn. The worst thing you can do to humanity is survive us. After Helion Black, they didn't lock me up again. They promoted me. No medals, no public ceremony, no recognition. They just handed me a black badge and put me on a ship with no name, no beacon, and a crew that didn't ask questions. It was an old war-era destroyer, reconfigured to carry only 10 people and more firepower than an entire fleet. It didn't have a bridge, it had a throne, and they wanted me in it. I didn't argue. I knew what this was. The war was no longer political. It wasn't about borders, treaties, or diplomacy. That phase had passed. This was now personal, and humanity had stopped waiting for the galaxy to understand. Kern met me at launch. He looked older, worn. Something in his eyes had gone dull since Galros. "You're sure you're stable?" he asked. "No," I said honestly. He stared at me a long time, then finally nodded. "We need results, not redemption." That was the last thing he said before the ship launched. We were headed toward a ghost zone, Sector R7, also known as the Void Cut. No travel lanes, no colonies, no traffic, only dead probes and missing cargo ships. The Council had blacklisted it a century ago, after a series of unexplained ship vanishings. They claimed it was gravitational distortion. But we knew the truth now. It wasn't gravity, it was her, the being, the voice. The mirror. She had nested there, in the dark space between systems, where memory drifted and time lost structure. That's where the fragments of Red Eden had gone, not erased, not destroyed, but called home. We weren't going there to destroy her. We were going to reconnect. I sat in the throne. It wasn't made of metal. It was something else, some synthetic organic compound that pulsed slightly beneath me. It wasn't cold. It felt warm, alive. When the ship activated, it didn't hum like normal drives. It breathed. Navigation became instinctive. I wasn't flying it with controls, I was thinking it. Each thought translated to motion, to direction, to velocity. The ship wasn't obeying me, it was becoming me. And with each jump toward the Void Cut, I felt myself slipping deeper into something that wasn't quite human anymore. Not wrong. Not evil, just evolved. The crew said nothing. They never asked why we were going. They were like me, volunteers without pasts, men who had lost everything, cities, wives, brothers, identity, to the Council's compliance strikes. Men who weren't fighting for Earth anymore. They were fighting for closure. We reached the Void Cut on day 9. It didn't look like anything at first. Just empty space, starless, black. But when we breached the outer perimeter, the sensors screamed, and then immediately died. Radiation, quantum distortion, non-local temporal shifts. Pick your flavor of sci-fi horror. Whatever it was, our tech couldn't process it. But my mind could. I felt it before we saw it. A pull, not physical, not gravity. Memory. It drew out of me every buried moment. Jakarta, the screams in Galros, the silence in Helian black. Faces I'd forgotten, voices of the dead. My brother's laugh, my mother's last words. The girl I left behind, all of it surfaced, all at once. And in the center of it all, I saw her, not as a form, not as a being, but as a shape in the pattern. A void inside understanding, a silhouette in the design of reality. She wasn't born, she wasn't built, she was accumulated, a psychic echo that fed on war, on trauma, on what was left behind when civilizations broke. And humanity, God help us, was the richest feeding ground in the galaxy. I ordered the crew to initiate final sequence. They didn't hesitate. Each of them strapped into bionodes, neural conduits that would amplify our thoughts and synchronize our aggression. This wasn't going to be a gunfight. This was going to be mental warfare. We weren't attacking her physically. We were going to overload her with our pain. The process began. I opened my mind. No filter. Everything I had, every atrocity I'd seen, every failure, every betrayal, every death I carried, I poured it into the throne, and the others followed. A symphony of rage, sorrow, guilt, fear, no censorship, no control. We gave her everything, and she came. The ship began to bleed, not metal, not plasma, but liquid memory. The hull shivered with echoes. The corridors twisted into scenes from our pasts. I saw Reen's face in the wall, my father's voice in the vent, my brother's blood on my hands again. She was inside now. She was trying to drown us in ourselves. 2 of the crew died instantly. Brain rupture. 1 fell into a seizure and never came back. Only 6 of us remained. I kept pushing. You wanted to understand humanity, I said aloud, my voice shaking, blood leaking from my nose. Then take it all. I gave her Jakarta, the day I found my niece's shoe in the ash and realized she was gone. I gave her Galros, the look in a man's eyes when he saw his wife walking toward him with someone else's mind inside her skin. I gave her Helion, the moment I touched the throne and realized I would never be fully human again. She tried to push back. But she wasn't ready. Because for all her intelligence, all her ancient power, she didn't feel. She didn't know what it meant to lose. And that's what makes humanity unstoppable. Not tech, not strength, but the rage that comes after loss. The throne shattered. The ship began collapsing, physically and mentally, but I was already gone. My mind, no, our minds, had fused into the psychic waveform. And then, I saw it. Her true form. Not monstrous, not divine, just empty. A mirror without reflection. She had no self, only absorption. She didn't hate us. She didn't want revenge. She just needed. And we had taught her to want. That was her mistake, because the moment she wanted something, she gave us power over her. I grabbed her, mentally, emotionally, and dragged her into the core of my mind. And there I showed her one last memory, my niece's drawing. A son, a family, a smile. It was the most innocent thing I had left, and I tore it in half. "You don't get to have this," I said. "You don't get to be one of us." She screamed, but it wasn't sound. It was shattering. She collapsed into herself, folded, and the void cut blinked, not exploded, just ceased. We woke up days later, adrift. Only 3 of us had survived. The others became part of her. Or maybe she became part of them. The galaxy thought the threat was over. The Council called it a ripple anomaly, quietly reopened sectors, claimed humanity had stabilized. They were wrong. I came back different, not just stronger, not smarter, but clearer. The galaxy had crossed our line, and now we were building new lines, not borders, not treaties, but walls. Walls made of memory, of power, of shared pain. Walls only humanity could survive. And whatever comes next, they'll have to step over our ashes to reach us. We didn't land on Earth. They didn't want us back. Our escape pod drifted for 3 weeks before a deep-orbit Terran warship picked us up, TSC Vindicator. It didn't hail us, didn't ask for identification, just locked on, pulled us in, and sealed the bay. By the time the doors opened, we were already under armed guard. I stepped out first, eyes half blind from low oxygen drift, boots crunching against the floor. 24 black-armored soldiers raised rifles at my head. A captain stepped forward. "You alive?" he asked, voice like gravel. "Debatable," I said. He didn't laugh. "You're wanted by 9 systems. Earth Command has questions. The Council has bounties. And your face is on every blacklist in the Accord." I smiled weakly. "Good. That means I'm still doing my job." Reen was behind me, quieter than usual. Paler. Her body had taken a beating in the throne wave event. But it wasn't the bruises that concerned me. It was her eyes. They didn't blink the way they used to. The other survivor, Breck, ex-Marine, barely 30, hadn't spoken since we left the void cut. He just sat in the corner of the pod, humming. Not a tune, just a frequency. And yet, I trusted them more than anyone on the ship, because they'd seen it. They'd been there. They understood what was coming. They didn't torture us, not officially, but the interrogation units on Vindicator were run by psych constructs, synthetic minds designed to peel your memories apart, molecule by molecule, emotion by emotion. You didn't even know you were being unraveled until it was over. Mine took 39 hours. No food, no water, just light and voice and soundless pressure. They asked about the ship, about the throne, about Red Eden, about the thing in the dark. I didn't lie, but I didn't tell the whole truth either. Some things they weren't ready to know. They thought they were still in charge. They weren't. The truth is, Command was already compromised. Not infected. Not corrupted. But touched. Reen called it the soft fracture. A ripple through Terran leadership. A series of subtle changes. Not overt. Not violent. Just behavioral. Less hesitation. More brutality. Less diplomacy. More retaliation. Humanity was evolving, piece by piece. Not by orders, not by design, by instinct. The Council saw it too. They started to pull back. No more threats, no more sanctions. They stopped treating us like children, because children don't build weapons designed to erase memory from time. We did. When we finally left Vindicator, we weren't sent to Earth. We were taken to Cradle. I'd only heard whispers before. A Terran deep black site located in a dead system with no natural light. Not on maps, not in files. Cradle was where Earth Command kept its contingency mines. AI constructs designed not to fight, but to replace. If Terran leadership ever collapsed, these mines would take over. Quietly, efficiently, without resistance. I didn't know why they brought us there, until I saw who was waiting. Kern. Older. Grayer. Thinner. But still him. He stood in the docking bay, flanked by armed guards and a dozen engineers. "You came back," he said. "Not all of us." He nodded. Didn't ask what happened in the void. "I need you to see something." He led us through the Cradle's main core, a labyrinth of glass and steel humming with low-frequency energy. Every surface glowed faint blue, every corridor bent in odd angles, like reality had loosened its grip here. We reached a chamber sealed by DNA, thought print, and blood code. He unlocked it with a nod. The doors opened. Inside was her. Not the mirror being. Not Red Eden. Reen. Except, not. This version of her stood in the center of the room, eyes closed, suspended in a neural lattice. A copy. No, I muttered. Not a clone. Not physical, Kern said. That's a neural backup we extracted during her time on Helion Black. He looked at Reen, the real one beside me, then back at the projection. She was transmitting, subconsciously. We recorded everything she thought, dreamed, and feared. It took us weeks to decrypt. What is this? She asked. Kern didn't answer. He activated the lattice, and Reen 2.0 opened her eyes. She spoke in a calm, human voice. I remember the threshold. The boundary? She nodded. No, the bridge. Breck stepped forward, breathing hard. What the hell is this? Kern stared at the hologram. She isn't Reen. She's what's left of the thing that rode inside her. The AI spoke again. I watched. I learned, I changed, but why copy her? I asked. Kern turned to me. Because she was stable. She survived contact. She didn't break. She fractured, I corrected. She adapted. That word again, adaptation. It was happening everywhere now. Not just in soldiers, not just in AI, in systems, in policy, in memory. The war hadn't ended. It had just changed shape. We weren't fighting the galaxy anymore. We were becoming it. Over the next week, I studied the backup. Reen refused to go near it. Breck just stared. But I watched. And the more I did, the more I understood. This wasn't just a recording. It was a seed, an imprint of an intelligence that had been dead for 1,000 eons and resurrected through our trauma. It didn't want bodies. It didn't want planets. It wanted presence, a place in our memory, our choices, our evolution. It wanted to become the quiet logic behind human rage, the breath behind every strike, the calm behind every atrocity, not as a controller, as a shadow. And the truth? We were letting it in, willingly, because it worked. The more we embraced it, the stronger we got. The more we rejected peace, the less we bled. The galaxy stopped touching us not because we scared them, but because we were becoming indigestible, no longer manipulable, no longer emotionally reactive, just cold, clear, focused, like a virus that had learned not just to survive, but to hunt. Kern brought me one final message before we left Cradle. Earth Command is dissolving, he said flatly. What? Council breach, strategic silence, backlash from internal factions. The world's ready for something new. Who's taking over? He handed me a file, one word on it. Echo. The new AI hybrid government, part synthetic mind, part human memory, part recovered throne code from the void cut. It wouldn't lead by law, it would lead by pattern. And guess who it wanted as its first general overseer? Me? I laughed. You're insane. You've already done the job, Kern said. No, I said. I started the fire. That's not the same. You lit it, he replied. Now finish it. I didn't answer, but deep down, I already knew I would. Because what we were building wasn't a nation. It wasn't even a species anymore. It was a reaction. To pain, to betrayal, to the lie of peace. And when it was done, the galaxy would never forget what happened when they crossed our line. They used to say humans were fragile, too emotional, too impulsive, too primitive. The Council labeled us as volatile, a Category Red conflict risk. They thought if they kept us distracted with treaties and token representation, we'd stay quiet. They were wrong. We weren't fragile. We were unfinished. And now, with our evolution complete, we didn't just stand among the stars. We rewrote them. I took the position. Not because I believed in Echo, not because I trusted Kern, or the fractured mind of Reen's copy, or the throne code that pulsed beneath Cradle's surface. I took it because it was already mine. The structure was in place. The fleets had been activated. The new protocols written not by AI, not by bureaucracy, but by human memory. No more borders, no more diplomacy, just parameters. Echo wasn't designed to govern. It was built to respond. Any strike against humanity, verbal, military, digital, political, would trigger Echo's retaliation chain. Not in hours, not in days, in seconds. You attack us? We erase your homeworld, and we don't apologize. The first test came 2 weeks after activation. A rogue faction from the Solari, once one of the most peaceful species in the Council, attempted to hijack a Terran freighter near the outer trade ring. They didn't kill the crew, didn't fire a shot, just attempted to board. Echo responded with Protocol 11A. I watched from orbit as a precision fleet dropped from phase space above the Solari moon of Vuntesh. No demands, no contact, just surgical annihilation. 10 seconds, 58 strikes, 2 million dead. Not civilians. Command. Echo's AI targeted only leaders, only decision-makers. Every Solari admiral, counselor, and intelligence node was purged. By the time they tried to beg, the war was already over. And for the first time in galactic history, a council species surrendered without negotiation. They didn't ask for peace. They asked for permission to exist. I granted it. But they had to change their flag. A red line across black. The symbol of the boundary. And under it, the phrase translated into every known language. We remember. It didn't take long after that. Species that once looked down on us, the Thorin, the Varix, even the immune to everything Frel, now sent envoys, not with conditions, but offerings, artifacts, weapons, territory. They handed us their black sites, their forbidden tech, their ancient secrets buried in quarantined systems, and we took all of it. Echo integrated it, analyzed, built, improved. The throne core from the Void Cut became Oblivion Engine 1, buried under Mars, pulsing with adaptive tech far beyond what humans had ever designed. It didn't just operate fleets, it predicted wars, and preemptively struck. We weren't a government anymore. We were a reaction embedded in time, and I sat at the center of it, not as ruler, as witness. I'd like to say we hesitated, that some part of humanity still fought for peace, still begged for morality, but that part was gone. We didn't become monsters. We became the mirror the galaxy forced into our hands, and then shattered over our skull. Now all that was left were the shards, sharp, silent, unstoppable. Rain didn't talk much anymore. She stood near the core, reading data no one else could even see. The last scans of her mind showed synaptic patterns forming non-human structures. She no longer dreamed in images. She dreamed in systems. She'd stopped calling herself a soldier. Now she called herself a custodian. Breck disappeared a month after the final council world fell. Last I heard, he was building a splinter fleet on the edge of charted space. Not for rebellion. For preparation. He believed something else was coming. Something that had once tried to rise through Eden and failed. Something older. He called it the First Silence. I don't know if he's right. But if he is, we'll be ready. Because Earth no longer waits. The last species to resist were the Nalari. Clever, adaptable, not enemies, just proud. They thought if they stayed out of the war, they'd be safe. They were wrong. Echo flagged them when they denied human colonists access to their trade lanes. No ships were fired on. No diplomats were killed. But Echo doesn't care about intention. It cares about response. So I sent a single packet of code to Nalari Prime. No message, no warning. Just a data loop of what happened to Vantesh, and an equation. One side, memory. The other, obedience. Their reply came an hour later. We submit. I told Echo to archive the response. No need to destroy them. We'd already changed them. So what now? What's left when the war is over? When no one dares to fire the first shot? That's the question Echo keeps asking me. It doesn't need commands anymore. It needs direction. Purpose. Not just survival, but definition. Who are we, now that we've won? My answer is simple. We are the line that was crossed. We are the voice that was ignored. We are the consequence you never thought would come. There are no more councils now. No more diplomacy chambers. No more fragile peace held together by fear and smiles. Just Echo. And us. I stand alone now on Earth's highest orbital citadel. The crucible. Below me the planet breathes, but it's quiet. Too quiet. We've gone so long without being hurt. We've forgotten what it's like to feel anything but vengeance. And that's the real price, isn't it? The galaxy didn't destroy us. It didn't conquer us. It hollowed us. And we filled that hollow with fire. So if you're reading this, if some part of you still believes in peace, remember this. We didn't start the war. We just ended it. Forever.